Hi, I'm Peggy Dunn. Welcome to Your Hunger Satisfied, where we discover what you are truly hungry for and learn to satisfy those deepest cravings so you can end emotional eating once and for all. Do me a favor and let me know when and where you are watching from. I would really appreciate this. How many of you have ever arrived at a restaurant hungry and the waiter brings chips and salsa, or perhaps the bread basket to the table and you just grabbed one and started eating it? I know, I used to do this routinely. Who here has driven by a fast food place and found that your car just pulls in of its own accord? And of course, you just had to order something and maybe even ate it on the way home. Yeah. Emotional eating often entices us with promises of comfort, temporary, temporary relief, and distraction. But do we ever really stop and ponder a powerful question? Is it really worth it? Today, we're going to explore that question. I know many times I have arrived at a restaurant, and when the bread basket was brought to the table, I would simply pick one up and start eating it. Sometimes, briefly, I would think, man, I am hungry. Other times, I would think, oh, that looks good. I love these biscuits at this restaurant, or those bread rolls at that restaurant. Believe me, that is as far as the thought would go before that bread or chips were in my mouth. And I'm thinking, oh, so good. Okay, now that I'm on my overcoming emotional eating, also known as weight journey, now what? This is a habit I want to break. But did those bread rolls taste good? Worse. Were there many times I did arrive at the restaurant hungry, which made it only that much harder to resist? What was I to do? One of the first things we're going to discuss is what I call the power of the pause. This will help us move from what I call the knee jerk reaction of just grabbing food, eating it, and not taking the time to. Now take the time to ask myself the question, is it worth it? Since I'm now focused on becoming better at making better decisions that serve me better, which, by the way, is a process, not an instantaneous transformation, which I'll cover over time in future recordings. I noticed that when I came from the subconscious knee jerk arena, my thoughts went from, I can't help myself. Oh, I really shouldn't do this. Frankly, I didn't find this very helpful since I had to rely on willpower. And honestly, sometimes it's in very short supply, especially when I was hungry. As time went on, it progressed from a knee jerk subconscious reaction to just grabbing the food to a conscious decision. Now my thoughts were, do I really want this? I'll talk about that in just a moment, about my progression in the journey. Taking the time to implement this powerful pause can help us break free from emotional eating. It can help us nurture our overall well being without the feeling of deprivation. It makes me feel powerful to consciously choose to be okay with my decision. Another concept was I had to develop a very clear picture of what I wanted to achieve. the picture of good health that I wanted to achieve. I got really clear on that picture of my life when I am living the picture of good health. Now, when I sit faced with the bread basket at a restaurant, I powerfully pause and think about my long term vision of my health, my body size, my fitness level, my strength, etc. Remember, I said I got very clear on what good health looks like, feels like, on how I was living that life of great health. I'll talk more about vision in a future recording. Now my questions moved from do I want this? I was able to focus on my long term objective and well being and not simply react in the moment. I was able to make a conscious choice to decide between short term pleasure or long term gain or results. The question I began asking myself became, will this move me towards my long term goal? I admit sometimes it still came up with, I don't care. I had to sit with that and continue asking myself better questions. Like, why don't I care? Good question. I found that at certain times, like birthday parties, anniversaries, or other such times, it was more important to me to partake in the festivities with the people I loved rather than focus solely on my long term objective. Perhaps it was a special food that I did not want to forgo because, well, simply because I chose not to. Easy enough. For instance, I am well into my journey and I attend this monthly international cooking class. Now, this is a dream I've had my entire life. I wanted to be able to sample foods from all different countries, genuine foods, not the Americanized ethnic foods. Unfortunately, I was never willing to put in the work to research foods from different countries, to host a party, etc. But oh, foods from all around the world was my dream. It was and is a dream come true for me. The host, Jennifer, loves doing the research and the shopping for all the ingredients from that region of the month. We, the participants, show up and do the cooking while she supervises. Win-win situation. There are so many ways other countries cook their food. Some countries that eat foods that are prepared differently than I would eat in order to meet my long-term objectives of great health. Guess what? I paused powerfully to think about it. Then I made a conscious decision. I was going to partake on a monthly basis in the international cooking class. To me, this yes, reoccurring monthly decision is one I chose to make. I thought about it, determined the price I was willing to pay. Short term pleasure, long term gain. I did want to reach my goals, but not at the expense of never being able to fully enjoy life. This brings me to the next and third concept that I want to discuss. You can always change your mind. Say what? Yes, yes, you can. There have been times when I'm at a birthday party, and of course, cake and ice cream are being served. Now, that combination happens to be my favorite dessert: ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. But I don't want to sacrifice my long term goal either. I have learned over time to make my own ice cream, which I call nice cream. I get it down to a single serving made in my little blender, made with frozen fruit, plant based milk, and it's a healthier version of ice cream, and I'm okay with that. I consider that a treat to myself. So, one, I don't have to have it all the time. I see it as a treat. Two, it's a healthier version, so I'm okay with it. Now, there are times when I'm served cake and ice cream at a birthday party. Let's say I do decide I want to partake in the festivities. I want to partake in the cake and ice cream. But after taking a bite, I change my mind. It's too sweet. It's not really worth sacrificing my long term goals. I decide I'd rather have the long term goal instead of just an ordinary piece of cake. So now I have several options here. I can choose to finish it and probably regret it. No, will regret it. I can choose to have a smaller portion of it, or I can decide to put it away. If I do decide to eat it, I choose to savor it. Pay close attention to the flavor, the texture, and the company around me, the partaking of festivities rather than the ice cream itself. I find that if I savor it, one, I get a lot more enjoyment out of it because I'm not eating in a rush to get rid of the guilt, then I typically end up eating a lot less of it. So as we close today, I want you to take a few steps in your own journey. First, practice the pause when you find yourself ready to grab something to eat. Second, get really clear on what your future life of health looks like. We'll talk more about that next week. To get really clear on what your life will be like when you reach your long-term goal of overcoming emotional eating or losing the weight you want to lose. And third, give yourself permission to change your mind. Now, before we go today, I want to remind you that I'm still accepting applications for a spot in my pilot program, Your Hunger Satisfied, which starts September 6th. This is a program where I teach women who are successful in so many areas of life, yet struggle to overcome emotional eating or want to lose 20, 50, or 100 pounds. This program helps women redefine their relationship with themselves and with food, to transform their thoughts and shift their mindset about the way they eat, overcome personal triggers that cause emotional eating, set boundaries, grow in self-love and see themselves the way God does, and develop the habits that support them and shifts them to a more positive mindset. To learn more and find out if this is a fit for you, go to calendly.com, Peggy Dunn Coaching, and schedule your complimentary call. Or you can go to my website, yourhungersatisfied.com, and schedule your discovery call. Until next time, make it a joyful week. And don't forget to powerfully pause.